or one of the most important things we address. To be honest, we haven't started yet interviewing or really even making a short list yet. The last couple days, I've met with the players, went through the year-end interviews with the players. So that's been kind of in the last day and a half my work. There's different things. I haven't met with the coaches yet. I haven't met with the rest of the staff. So that'll come in the next few days. That'll be the next step. But there's no doubt that the coaching search will be an important one.
When you do talk to the players, how much of their input will go into what you do as far as putting together a list of what attributes the next coach should have?
I think sometimes the players will give you some information on how they feel, but I think we're around the team, we're around the dressing room enough to understand what we need and what's needed moving forward with the players that we have, and where we're at. So I think it's a little bit unfair to ask the players to comment on, what exactly has happened with Torts or what exactly they want in the next coach. I think you go a little bit more indirectly and to try to find out what what they feel would work best for the team that we have, not going specifically for them. I don't think that's fair for the players.
What qualities do you want in the next coach?
First of all, I always believe communication is important. So that's going to be something we look into. I mentioned on or the day after, was it the same day, we let go of Torts. Someone that can come in and teach will be an important one as well. Communication and teaching are probably two things that will be at the forefront of our next coach. Just when you have a young team in place, I really think those two attributes are extremely important.
Sometimes and this isn't every single situation, but a lot of times one coach leaves, the next coach is different. It's like a, tough guy.
It'll be tough to find someone like Torts, to be honest.
But I guess, does that play into your thinking of, okay, well, we've had Torts, now we need maybe a softer hand?
Not necessarily. But again, I don't think there's very many options that are going to be, as demanding as Torts. So in that regard, our guys are pretty sturdy. They've learned the hard way under Torts. Anybody that comes in, will seem a lot milder than Torts, I would expect. So it's definitely going to be someone that's going to be less, I guess, vocal, hard than Torts was.
When it comes to the current staff, Danny, obviously Bradshaw came in as an interim, and it looked like the team responded to him pretty well. Where's his standing, I guess, in this whole search, and also the rest of the coaching staff, and maybe more specifically, Rocky was in the spotlight a little bit just because the power play has been.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We haven't had those talks. So since the season ended, the focus has been on the players. In the next few days, we'll start diving into the staff and the coaches, the staff downstairs that work around the players. So as far as Shazi goes, he did a really good job coming in. It was kind of a different approach than obviously Torts had, and some guys really stepped up and seemed like they were a little freer. Shazi will be in the running. We'll consider him. He's done a good job, and we've been impressed with him since he was here. Even under Torts, so he'll be in the running. But again, we're not at that stage yet.
Danny, do you have to align your timeline for the team with a new coach's timeline on the job. And what I mean by that is,
Yeah.
you could conceivably hire someone who has never coached in the NHL before and might need time to learn on the job. Are you comfortable with that, given the timeline of
Yeah.
the roster and the way you guys are building this? If you guys are ready to win now, you might hire somebody different.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. You try to be careful with that too. You want to bring, because if you find the right coach that you also believe can take you there, but also help you win, that's a no-brainer. It will depend on who's available. When I think I'll have a better gauge for that once I start the interview process and we start like kind of having a short list to that. There's hopefully you find a coach that can kind of do it all. And most coach will tell you that they can do it all, but some have not. And if it's a rookie coach, I guess we'll learn along the way. So it's going to be tough to tell. But at this point, I don't know yet. I don't have that short list to kind of decide that.
Can you kind of take us through the Alexei Kolosov, what kind of went on this year, and the decisions to have him up here but not play, and I guess for the future?
I can't, unfortunately, get in very much detail on Alexei. It was a tough year for him. There's no doubt about it. But he says he learned a lot. And he wasn't quite happy with the year that he had, but he feels that he learned a lot being here.
This is kind of a two-parter. Do you have maybe like a timeline for when you would like to hire a coach? Like, do you think it could be next month? Could it go into June?
I don't yet. Like I said, we haven't had those discussions yet, so I don't have an idea at this point.
And the other part was just, I know when John was hired, there was a lot of people involved in the hiring. I think there was like an independent firm, I believe, that helped you guys put together, I think, like the candidate profile.
Yeah.
Just wondering if there's going to be something similar to that in this process.
We're not going to go on the outside with an independent firm, but obviously we'll have a lot of people inside the organization involved with that.
Danny, you guys obviously finished with the fourth worst record in the league this year, but we talked to a lot of the players yesterday, and it seems like a lot of them are pretty confident that, not that you guys are going to turn into a contender overnight, but that you could be a significantly better team next year. Now, obviously, a lot of that is dependent upon the moves made this summer. Do you envision a summer where you think you can make enough moves to push this team back at least into maybe where you were last season?
Yeah, it's no secret. I think last year we probably overachieved from what the expectations were. This year we underachieved, but I still feel that we're a much better team and much closer than where we finished in the standings. I've always said the players would kind of dictate that. There's guys that really took a big step forward. There's a few guys that regressed, but I don't think we're that far off. I think we're at a stage now where we're going to shift a little bit from subtracting from the roster into trying to start to add and help the team. The last 2 years, I should say, there's a lot of trying to figure out what we had under our belt, where were our players and where were we moving forward. Now we're starting to have our the players that we feel moving forward. The exciting part for me is all the young guys that have taken a step in the last couple of years, and then all of a sudden the guys that we started drafting a couple of years ago are starting to turn pro. And you want that internal competitiveness to force the guys, and that was kind of my message to the players, to a lot of the players, is that we're getting to a point now where the guys that we were drafting a couple years ago are starting to turn pro. I wrote a list here of the guys that are like kind of coming on now that are pushing for a job. Luchenko, Bump, Dorwart, Kaplan, Barkey's turning pro. We traded for Gurbenkin. That's 6 guys that are pushing that didn't really have a role until the trade deadline. On defense, Ginning, Andre, Grans, McDonald, Bunk is turning pro. Those are all guys that are pushing for a spot as well. To me, that's the exciting part. And that was my message to the players is 3-4 years ago, we didn't have a lot of prospect. We had one prospect that was pushing to make a team here and there. And now we are starting to see guys starting to come. And the following year is going to be even more. All that combined, like the guys cannot be satisfied with where they are. And I think when you start creating that internal competition, it forces them to take a next step. The other part of it is removing or subtracting some of the contracts have created a little bit of cap space going into next season that we didn't think we would have until the following summer. So there's a little bit of a window to add from the outside. We're not going to be able to fix every problem, but it would be nice to be able to, if the situation is right, to add, a player or two to come in and help on that front, and that also, should help taking a step forward.
Is goaltending at the top?
It's an area that we would like to. Just like there's many of them, but it's definitely an area that we need along the way some better play, and maybe it's from the outside. It has to make sense, but yeah, it's an area that we need to be better at.
What's the latest with Ristolainen and his injury, and where is he health-wise?
Yeah, so Risto, again, it's a little freaky, but right after the trade deadline, I had to get checked, and they figured out that he needed to go under the knife for another surgery on his arm. So he's going to be out until probably the early parts of next season, unfortunately.
Is it the same tricep issue?
Yeah, very similar injury, yeah.
Tear the muscle again?
I don't know exactly, but he needed to go under a very similar injury that he had last year.
When did he have the surgery?
I don't know the details of that. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And you think he could miss games next season?
It's possible that he misses the beginning of the season, yeah.
You have 4 RFAs. What's the, I guess, where do things stand with them, and are you planning on offering them a call?
Yes. On that front, we did have some talks along the way during the season. Not since the season ended, but it's something that we plan on getting back in the next couple of weeks with them.
There's a lot of talk about potential offer sheets this summer around the league. How do you look at that, I guess, in terms of how much of a tool could that be to potentially add players?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a tool that we're going to look into. It has to make sense, and the thing is when you go down that route, you have to overpay normally for a player. I don't know that we're that flush with money that we can really be all that aggressive, but we're certainly going to take a look at it, and if it makes sense, we'll consider it.
You have the 7 picks in the first 2 rounds this summer. Do you envision making all the picks, or do you think you can maybe use some to get creative and potentially add to your?
We're going to try. We're going to try to be creative to create some value there. That's the goal. When you make a trade, you try to create some value for your team. It's possible we use all picks, but there's a good chance that we look at different things. It could be acquiring a player, it could be packaging to move up, it could be pushing picks back to other years. There's no doubt that it's a lot of picks. 7 in the first 2 rounds, 8 I think inside the top 70. That's a lot of picks. And then when you look down the road in 2 years, when these guys start to turn pro, that's a lot of players all in the same group. So we'll try to be careful, but it doesn't need to be done right away. If we don't like the value in return, we could make all the picks and then use those players as assets later on. So there's all kinds of possibilities here. I think it's really exciting going into it, having it's powerful to have so many picks like that. I think a lot of teams will be wanting to have discussions with us to make some things happen. Teams that don't have picks or teams that want to tweak things.
Danny, going back to the goaltending for a second, you mentioned about how it's a long-term problem. You guys need to address the goaltending position, but I guess how much of a short-term problem do you view it? Not even necessarily in terms of making the playoffs, but you guys had the worst save percentage in the league this year. If that's resulting in losses, do you worry that hurts the development of the defensemen who are watching pucks go in the net all the time and the forwards start cheating?
Yeah, well, we try to be cognitive of that. At the same time, it goes hand in hand, right? Is it the goalie or is it the forward that didn't back check or the D-man that lost his player back door for an easy tap-in goal? So the goaltending wasn't good enough. That's a reality. But it's not. It's too simple to just say blame everything on the goalie. There's other parts that weren't good also. We realized the goalies did not play to the expectations we had, but there's a lot more issues that goes into it. So, I've talked to all the goalies, and they know they have a lot to prove, and it's not going to be good enough to come back at the same level. And if we have a chance to improve, we're going to have to seriously consider it.
Danny, back to the coaching search. With the exception of, I think, 4 guys, all of whom I'm pretty sure have won a cup for their respective teams, every other team in the league has changed its coach within the last 2 or 3 years. Is that just the way the league is? I mean, do you view this as your opportunity to hire someone who can be here for a long time? How do you view that?
Ideally, I'd have to have a coach that's going to be here for the next 25 years and make my life a lot easier.
Be unprecedented.
Yeah. I think it depends too on who's there, who's available. I haven't looked into it deep enough at this point to really know if there's candidates out there that can be here for a really long time. Obviously, if you go with a younger guy, you don't have that certainty. You don't know. But we want to not just interview older guys or younger guys. Like I would like to, consider different coaches, different point of views, and then, as a group, we'll kind of make a decision on who makes more sense for us. Like I said earlier, with the team that we have a younger team that is just starting to come together. They're just starting to explore how far and how good they can be. So those are things that you keep in consideration when you talk to a coach. I really like what Torts did, to be honest, the last few years with this group. Made him accountable. He was hard, but he demanded a lot. The accountability part really, I think, is going to leave something good for the next coach that comes into place. And now it's finding a coach that can take it to another level, but at the same time, maybe give a little bit more freedom to the players to try things and to let their talent come out. And we saw a little bit of that with Shazi. The last few years, even before I was GM, when I was in the organization, we kept hearing the Flyers don't have enough skill, enough talent. That was always kind of the thing that was holding us back. That was kind of the message out there. And I start to look, Konechny has elevated his game. Matvei Mishkov coming over has really expanded that level of skill. Tyson Forster brings another level. Owen Tippett is in his own way can create offense by himself. We're starting to see more and more talent, and that talent is elevating on a team. And we have, some of the young guys like Luchenko and Bump especially come to mind, Barkey. Those are all high-level skill player. So, I think we're shifting away from what we were a few years ago with the lack of skill. So that's really exciting to me. And, it's gonna have to be a coach that can tap into that and let that even get better and better.
I guess in that vein, the power play was, I think before the season you said the power play wasn't all of a sudden going to be a top 10 power play in the league. I think you used the word
Small
baby
steps,
steps.
yeah. Baby steps.
Really, yeah, they really didn't seem like they were taken this year. What was the issue? Why is it?
Well, there was
why has it
baby
been-
steps this year,
Was there?
definitely. I mean, we went from 12 to 15%. Is it good enough? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
but there's baby
30
steps.
30th in the league is
Like-
still not anything you're going to brag about.
No, it went from 32 to 30. That's a baby step. That's a baby step.
If you're going to measure.
I mean, I know you
season.
wanted to go get in the top 15 right away, but it's not going to happen that way. I mean, Matvey Mishkov coming in helped, but Matvey has so much to learn on how to run a power play. I was really excited to see our guys think outside the box at the end when they went with 5 forwards. I thought that was fantastic to see something different, and that group actually gave us some different looks. I thought they moved better. They were able to make more plays, more puck possession inside the zone. We probably should have gone that way earlier in the season, or checked it out. So there was some improvement. Again, not nearly good enough, but there were some baby steps. And I'm going to expect a better or bigger step next season when it comes to that. The part that excites me is the skill level growing on our team, guys being willing to make more plays, and that's going to start with guys like Konechny, Mishkov, and Forster, for example.
With regards to the structure, so when you got the GM job and when they hired Keith Jones as president of hockey operations, Dan Helfrey talked about it being a triumvirate of leadership with you, Jonesy, and John. The next head coach, is the plan to kind of slide him into that triumvirate, or is it going to be different? Was John unique because of his stature and his experience, where he was kind of in that triumvirate, I guess, as Dan called it?
Yeah, I mean, the next coach is going to be included in what we do, and as far as the plan and the message and all that. It also depends to which degree on his experience. Torts has been around, had so much experience. Probably the most experienced, out of that group at the time. So a lot of it will depend too on how experienced the next coach is.
Danny, I know the coaching hire is a really big one for you and for Keith Jones, and I know sometimes going the college route is considered like a bold choice, but would you be willing to take a risk on a college coach if it's the right fit?
If it's the right fit, if it makes sense, and I know I've read your stories, and I know there's some names that you're interested in, and we're definitely going to look into it.
You were in the room when Torts was hired, but obviously Chuck made that decision. What did you learn from that experience that you're going to take with you into whatever interview process you're going to go through with the next guy?
It makes me way more comfortable going through it now. The first time around, I was more of an eye in the sky kind of thing. I'm very grateful that Chuck gave me the chance to be involved, to see how it works, what to do. Something as simple as what are the questions you ask when you're trying to find your next head coach. So I'm very grateful that Chuck gave me that chance, and I feel way more comfortable going into it. I saw the process. I feel like I've been through it, and I still have all my notes from the previous search. So like I said, I feel comfortable about it going into it.
Matt Bay's progression this season, and we talked to him obviously through the interpreter. Is there anything you can tell us about him that maybe isn't very well known or understood yet, that you've seen behind the scenes that maybe fans might be interested in?
Yeah, well, the one thing I can tell you is it's impressive how minded he is. I've been around a few superstars, and he's got that mindset. He came in. He has a detailed plan of all the things he wants to do, and I was actually shocked by how prepared he was for his meeting, and he knew exactly what he needed to do and how he wants to conduct himself this summer.
You just had it with you. He
Yeah,
just came in with a
yeah,
list
just
and-
this morning
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
He's a special athlete person. He sees it. Extremely intelligent. He's got a different mind. It's part of the reason that makes him who he is. There's something special around him, just on how his approach. What he was telling me, and all the things that he learned this year, and I was amazed by, usually you don't expect that from a 20-year-old to come in and tell you, how he's looked around the league and he's looked at players and where they have success and why they have success and what he needs to do. And usually guys get that in their 30s or when the careers start winding down. I know I did, and it was too late almost to recover. He's got an impressive mind and mindset and approach. I left the meeting like laughing to myself, like, wow, this if he accomplishes half of the thing he has on his list to do, we're in really good shape. So having Madvig come in this year rather than wait an extra 2 years, the culture shock, the language, learning from Torts and his staff, understanding a little better how everything works around here. Like navigating an NHL dressing room is not easy, especially when you come in as a superstar trying to fit in to a group that's already kind of looking at you sideways like, okay, here's the savior coming in. This is not an easy room or any room to walk into. The way he did it, and at the same time trying to keep his swagger. I'm so glad he went through that this year. I think the players earned their respect by how he carried himself. He's a hard worker. He always is looking to improve. So I'm really excited with him. What the stuff that he was able to do. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think he would score even 20 goals this year. I didn't think he would, get to half a point a game. And there's so many facets of his games that are not quite there yet. It's really, really exciting what happened with him this year.
A player that we didn't get to speak to is Igor Zamula. Is there any update that you can provide? Is it because of injury or anything?
No, I'm not sure why. I just had a talk with him. He was in a good place mentally. What I said earlier about getting pushed, he had that message. It was loud and clear. He's an NHL defenseman. He has to decide now. If he is content with where he is, but he's a player that has the skill level and the size to move up. So it's really all up to him how he dedicates himself to taking that next step. So that was my message to him.